All right, good afternoon, friends, and welcome to our featured training for the month, which is a expert buyer consultation with Pat Barmann. For those of you who do not know Pat, he's this lovely young man right here. Pat joined our company in May of 2020. He transferred from another brokerage after about a year in real estate.
Only 4 months.
Only 4 months. So Pat is entering his third full year in real estate. Last year, Pat closed 23 units for just over $6 million in volume. So Pat is somebody who takes advantage of our training and education and our coaching programs here at Keller Williams Greater Metropolitan and has a really outstanding buyer consultation that he's been using and perfecting for years. Knowing what we're coming up on in the market, right, in the next 90 days, buyers, regardless of interest rates, are going to be coming out of the woodwork. And you will have a lot of people interested in buying a home this spring. An effective buyer consultation is so important to make sure that your time, energy, and resources are allocated appropriately to the individuals that are going to buy now, or individuals that needed to buy yesterday, right? To make sure that you're not running all over the greater Cleveland area for somebody that isn't pre-approved. I know that seems pretty simple, but just so I say it, don't take out buyers that aren't pre-approved. So Pat's going to walk through his buyer consultation for me. I will be playing the role of his client. And then you can see, you all have the same packet that we're going to work through in front of you. Consistent with our culture, Pat has graciously offered all of his resources for your benefit. If you also want to watch along on the screen, we have slides of the same thing. So if you want to take notes and not necessarily have to be on the same page, you're welcome to do that as well. Before we get underway, what questions does anyone have? All right, hearing none, I'm going to turn it over to Pat, let him say a few words, and then we'll dive in.
So I'm Pat Barmann. Thank you guys for coming. Really appreciate you guys taking the time, and thanks for the intro. I've been doing this since I got licensed, and I learned it from my first brokerage. Basically the importance of meeting someone first, going over the expectations, answering all their questions, and kind of setting the groundwork for the process. And I find it really makes a difference. I do this 95% of the time. The times that I don't do it, those are the times that I may lose a buyer, or they may get upset during the process, or something happens. So the most important thing is I always do this before I start showing them houses. If you try and do it after, it's too late. So sometimes they push back and say, hey, let's go see this house first. I always say, hey, it's most important for your experience that we meet first. And then what I usually do is I look up like, hey, we're going to see this house in Brecksville. I'll find a coffee shop nearby. Hey, this is down the road. Let's meet an hour early. Just have a conversation. I don't make it too big of a deal. Talk about, the market, talk about ways that buyers are winning in this market, and just kind of set everything, and it makes it much easier for you. They almost always say, okay, that's fine. If they push back, honestly, like, they may not be the best client for me. If they just insist, hey, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it, I may not want to work with them. So they pretty much always do it with me, and they always get a lot of benefits out of it. And my background, so I've been in real estate for about 10 years. Before I was a realtor, I worked in title for a couple of years. So I know that aspect of it. So people have questions about title, I can go over that. And then I was a lender. I worked at Quicken, which is, I wouldn't use them now, but I worked there for a couple of years. I worked at Chase for over 6 years. Not lenders that I use, but I know a lot about how they work, and can kind of go over the pre-approval process. So again, I meet them first. It's very important to do that. Otherwise, if you're trying to do it after, they're not going to meet you. They'll say, oh, let's put it off, and it won't happen. So it's done beforehand. All right, so again, typically this is done at like a Panera, or they can pick a coffee shop nearby. And it's, grab coffee, let's chat, quick intro, and that's it. So when I get there, just introduce myself. Hey, I'm Pat.
Hey, Mike, nice
Hey,
to meet you,
Thanks
Pat.
for taking the time to meet me. I really appreciate it. So before we get started, do you have any questions you want to go over about real estate, about buying a house, about anything that I can answer for you?
No, there's nothing really out of the gate. I'm sure that things will come up, but
Okay.
like, I think this is the right move for, this is the next step for me, and I need to stop renting and get into a house.
Okay, so you're renting it.
I am.
Okay,
I am.
perfect. So this is your first time buying a house then?
I am a first-time home buyer.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of first-time home buyers, and it's very important for anyone to kind of know the process, but especially first-time home buyers. You never bought a house before, so
No.
you don't know how this all works, and why would you, right? So you may have a lot of questions, and you should, because this is your first time doing it, and I do this all day, every day. So what we're going to do now is kind of go over the process, what expectations you have, what you pay, when you pay it. And at the end, I'll learn about you and about what you're looking for. And then we'll get a game plan to help you find a home.
Yeah, that sounds great. I probably don't know what I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
So about myself, I've been a real estate agent. I'm on my third year. And I've been in real estate for about 10 years. So I have a lot of background in different parts of real estate. So I can answer any question you have and kind of set us on the right path.
Awesome.
So here's the packet.
Oh, thank you.
So this is yours to take home. All this information is for you. So I just bring a folder, just make it look good, put your business card in there. And everything in here they take. So if they sign anything, I take a picture of it. That way it's done and they can just keep everything. Interesting. Yep. So the first thing we're gonna go over is an overview of home buying process. So this kind of breaks everything down, what happens between now and you getting these. So
Seems like a lot.
It's a lot, I guess, but I'll make it simple for you. So I'm here the entire time. So I'm not just gonna like give this to you and send you on your way. I'm gonna manage everything with you, so you'll have me walking with you all the way to closing.
Okay, awesome.
So the first thing that you're gonna do is work with real estate agent. I'd love to work with you. But even if you don't work with me, I definitely suggest working with a licensed realtor. It's a very competitive market right now. And if you're trying to do things on your own, it's going to be very difficult for you. So again, hopefully we work together. If not, then definitely get someone trustworthy that they can help. So the next step is to get a pre-approval for a mortgage. Now, most people do finance when they buy their first house. Are you going to be paying cash or are you going to be getting a mortgage?
I will be getting a mortgage.
Okay, perfect. So it's very important that you get pre-approved before we start looking at houses.
So I have is that the same as a pre-qualification?
So good question. So pre-qualification and a pre-approval are different. So I always recommend to speak with the mortgage lender to go over everything. So what they'll do, what we're looking for is they pull your credit for you, go over your income statement. So are you self-employed or what kind of work do you do?
No, I'm a W2.
W-2, perfect. So what they're looking for would be 2 years of W-2s for you.
Okay.
30 days of pay stubs.
Okay.
Year-end pay stubs for last year, and then tax returns for the last 2 years. So with that information, they'll be able to figure out a baseline of what you're gonna get pre-approved for. Okay, and they'll also pull your credit, go over all your monthly expenses that you have. They'll ask you about your assets that you have. I'm curious, at this point, how much have you saved for a down payment?
I've got about 35,000 saved, but my parents will help me out if I need it.
Perfect. So the 35,000, is that sitting in a checking account now, a savings account right now?
That's some in like cash,
Okay.
And then some in a checking account, and some in just a market account, like a trading account.
And when you say cash, you mean like physical cash?
Physical cash,
Okay.
yeah. Like I try and keep 15 to 20 in cash.
Okay, perfect. So glad we talked about this now. Physical cash cannot be used for the transaction. So, yeah, most people don't know that. So if you plan on using that cash for the transaction, I would put it in your account now. It needs to be seasoned in your account for 60 days. So 2 bank statements need to be in there. The reason for it is the lender needs to verify where the funds have come from,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
So is that the same, like if my my parents are gonna help me out, or my brother's gonna give me some, 15,000 for the down payment, like, does that need to sit in there?
No, so what'll happen is you'll get a gift letter from your parents. But again, with that, the lender may ask for where the source of the funds are. So not to get too technical with it, but it's good to have no like cash going in and out of your account. Just because lenders need to verify that you're not a drug dealer, essentially. So they're looking for proof of where the funds come from and all that. But you can definitely get gift funds. You just have to, the lender will go over this more with you.
Okay.
A letter stating that it's a gift. It's not a loan.
All right.
So they'll ask you more about your assets and then kind of go from there. So your income, property, and then what's a ballpark price range that you're looking to spend?
Well, if I have about 40,000 to put down, 20, that's my 20%, right?
Okay. Yeah, good question. So a lot of people think you have to put 20% down to buy a house. That's actually not true. So a lot of buyers I work with, they put 3% down, they put 3.5% down, 5% down. Are you by chance a military veteran?
I am not.
Okay. There's VA lending, which is 0% down. But some buyers choose to put 20% down. The benefits of that are you don't pay what's called mortgage insurance every month. And your payment's going to be less.
Yeah.
However, rates are historically low right now, so it may be in your benefit to put less down. The last thing I'd want you to do is take all of your funds that you've saved up over the years, and great job saving them. And then at the end of the day, not have funds to buy furniture, to go on vacations, things like that. So I'll connect you with a lender and they'll go over the different scenarios of putting 20% down, maybe putting 10% down.
Yeah, so maybe there's more. I guess we'll figure that out in the pre-approval process.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So while we're talking about it, the next page here does have different lenders I recommend. And these are lenders that I've worked with in the past. It's not anyone that I get any kickback for recommending. These are people that I trust them. They've done business with me before, and they'll have great rates, great service, and they'll do a great job for you.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. Do you have any questions about the pre-approval process?
No, but it makes sense. It sounds like I'll need to pull some stuff together and get that taken care of.
Yeah, and if you have questions during that process, give me a call. I'm happy to go over that with you. And if you talk to those three and they're not the right fit for you, I'm happy to provide other options for you. So once you're pre-approved, we analyze your situation, which we're kind of doing right now. We'll talk more about what you're looking for, what your needs are, what your wants are. So we'll kind of circle back and do that at the end, but we're doing that right now.
Okay.
Once we know what you're looking for, you're pre-approved at this point, we'll look at properties. So at this point in time, you'll give me a call, send me a text, email me, let me know, hey, this property is interesting. I'm a full-time real estate agent, so I don't just do this on nights and weekends, so I'm very flexible. Most times I can show you a property the same day it's on the market. If not, as soon as you're able to. And that's very important now because you notice the houses are selling very quickly, and we'll talk more about the market later. Do you have a question about that?
No, it's interesting because I just saw on the news recently that like the market's cooling off, inflation, interest rates, that like it's not as crazy.
Yeah, good question. So we can talk more about that later, but yes, the market is still very hot right now. It's what's called a seller's market, which means there's not much inventory. There's very few options right now, and we'll pull up the MLS later and kind of look at houses that may be a good fit for you. You can kind of see that things are selling very quickly, oftentimes for above the asking price. So there's strategies that we can go over that can give you a pretty good chance to get the offer accepted. But it's still a very, very hot market. Got it. So yeah, take a look at any properties. Let me know. I'll meet you there at the property. And then once it's time that you have a property that you like, you want to write an offer, I go over that with you. So I'll send everything through DocuSign, which is a way that you can sign everything electronically. Go over every page of the contract. Some buyers I work with, they just get emailed, they sign it, and they're done. Some of them I go through and I take hours to go through every single line of the contract for them. It depends on how you feel about things, but I'm very happy to go over that in detail with you.
Yeah, I mean, like, what level of flexibility should I have, like a lawyer in the process, or what? How does that work?
Good question. So I've not worked with any clients that had a lawyer, but if you'd like to, then absolutely. If you want to have,
But
someone,
not necessary.
not necessary. No, it's definitely not typical.
Okay.
To have a lawyer.
Cool.
All right. So we write the offer and then negotiate terms. So at this point, there's a lot of things that go into your offer. A lot of people think, hey, the most important and the only thing that goes into writing a good offer is the purchase price. That's important, but there's a lot of other things that go into writing a very competitive offer.
What else is there?
So what I do is once we have a property that you like, I reach out to the listing agent and I ask them, hey, what's important to you and to your seller? And they may say, hey, Pat, like we need to close a little bit earlier, and then the seller may need to rent back, stay in the property for 20 or 30 days. Or they may say, hey, we're doing another deal right now. We want to use this title company because it's simpler for my seller to have one title company. Or they may say, hey, we've got multiple offers right now.
Yeah.
And, we have offers that don't have inspections or whatever it may be. They'll kind of let me know, hopefully, where we're at right now. And then I'll talk to you and say, hey, they want this closing date. They want to rent back, so stay in the property for 20 days. Does that work for you? And if you say no, then obviously, like, we're not going to do it. But if something that you can do and it doesn't cost you anything and it meets what the seller's looking for, those are the little things that are going to make a difference for you to have your offer accepted.
Now, does that, like, if I'm really favorable, because I'm renting right now, month
Sure.
to month, I come and go as I please.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can I, am I going to be able to get a deal? If
What do you-
I'm like, like if they got all these other terms, I'm going to let
Yeah.
them stay in the house. Like, can I come in and like, maybe.
It's still not the market where I see too many buyers getting deals.
Okay.
Especially in a multiple offer situation. That means that there's other agents writing offers on the property. So in terms of like getting a deal, that's not something that you kind of see too often. And I'll go over this later at the, actually, let me pull this up now. So I always have my laptop with me. I don't like pull it out unless something comes up like this. So I'll pull it up right now. And with this, I have a jetpack for Wi-Fi. I think I spend $25 or $30 a month on this thing. It makes it so much easier when you have to like hook up to Wi-Fi, look something up. It just makes it much easier. So I've got this queued up right now. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So this is kind of showing, you're looking in the $200,000 range in Cleveland Heights. So I pull this up in the MLS. You can kind of see over the last 2 years, this is the listing price versus the sales price. And you can see starting in April of 2021, things were selling for 106% of the listing price. Wow. So it's kind of fluctuated. It's down a little bit, but things are still at this point 102% of the listing price.
So you just breaking script here for a second. So you queue this up ahead of time.
No,
right?
like I just had this like, just because I
Yeah.
thought we talked about it,
Yeah.
but like I pulled the MLS and if they like say something, it's like, hey, this would make sense to show them. I pull the MLS up. Hey, this is list price versus sales price, or this is inventory trends. So just have it ready. And if it makes sense to bring it up and show them,
Mhm.
that's a lot better than me just like telling them there's no inventory. Like, hey, this is the MLS. This is great information.
Yeah, and you're waiting for a specific question for that to not like, you're not leading with, hey, look, plan on paying 106% or whatever.
Yeah.
On the sign, right?
It usually comes up. Usually they ask about the market at some point. If not, then I will bring this up when it makes sense. But just to let them know, like subtly, like, hey, you're probably not going to get a deal right
Yeah.
now. And it's a fine line too. You guys know working with buyers, like you don't want to jam it down their throat. It's like, hey, we're gonna offer 30 over. It's like they kind of need to slowly understand that. They have to like really see it. Because you work with buyers and sometimes you have to like lose out on 5 deals before you get one. And that's not fun for them or for you to show them 25 houses and finally to get it. So just kind of plant the seed now. Hey, the market is really hot. There's different strategies that we can use to have your offer accepted, but like getting a deal isn't really a thing that's going to happen too often.
So just setting expectations that there's the range and it probably starts at asking price.
Yes, absolutely. So I would say starting at asking is what I would recommend doing, assuming that the house is not overpriced. Which before we write an offer, I'll make sure that the house is priced appropriately.
Awesome.
Good question.
Yep. So we're negotiating terms.
Yep, negotiating terms. So once we decide these are the terms we're going to go with, this closing date, this title company, then they've accepted the contract. At this point, we're under contract.
Okay.
So the top few lines here. So sometimes I meet with a buyer and they buy a house the first day. They just go and they buy a property. Sometimes I've been working with buyers for over 2 years. They just haven't found the right property yet. Either, there's nothing's the best fit for them. They just haven't had an offer accepted. So there's really no timeline on the first part of the process. Once we're under contract, we're typically looking at closing in about 30 to 40 days from the offer being accepted until the closing date.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that it makes sense, but like so I'm under contract. Why does it take 45 days?
Good question. So there's 3 main contingencies that we're going over at this point to make sure the house is in good shape for you and you're able to buy the property.
Okay.
So the first thing that we do is typically we have a general home inspection, and that's done within the first 5 to 7 days of the offer being accepted. And what that is you hire someone to go through the property, their license, find any issues that may be in the property. So I've got recommendations on the next page here, but it's something that I will have you there with me. I'll be there, you'll be there, the inspector is going to be there. And
I get to come.
yes, it's definitely in your benefit to be there, because you'll learn about the house you're going to buy. And you'll learn how to maintain it. You'll also learn of any issues. So what you're looking for with the home inspection would be any giant red flags that may prevent you from wanting to buy the house. So like, for example, there may be a foundation issue that you catch when you buy a house and you may say, hey, this isn't, or whatever it may be. It's very important to do that. And then to be there to kind of learn, what's going on with the house.
Let's pause for a second. How many people require their buyers to be at the inspection?
It's the best of the ability.
Yeah,
Depends on
right.
their schedules
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
I mean, they're paying for it, so they should
Yeah.
see what they're getting for their
Right.
money.
No, it's just one of the things that we talked about in preparing for this is that I think that sometimes it's maybe doesn't seem like, oh, they have to be there, or they should be there, or let's work around that. But when they get that inspection report, if they were walking side by side, hand in hand,
Right.
it's a world of difference versus like, here's 72 pages of what's wrong with my house.
My first couple, I didn't require them being there, and it didn't go well. So it's like it's not an option. You have to be there, and they don't really debate me on it.
Yeah.
They're there. I'm there too. I always go, and it's good for everyone to be on the same page. Great, good question.
Yeah.
So resolve any issues. So after the inspection, there's going to be some things that come up in the inspection report. So if the house was built yesterday or 110 years ago, they're going to come up with 70 pages of things that aren't perfect with the home. And that's okay. That's normal. And what we're going to do is we're going to figure out if there's anything that that you're going to say, hey, this isn't for me, which is fine. That's okay. Or you may say, hey, there's a couple things, I'm okay with it, let's move forward as is, or we may negotiate things. If there's some latent defect, something that we didn't see in the walkthrough that wasn't disclosed to us before, we may negotiate that. Like, for example, let's say we think the roof is 20 years old, but it turns out that it's 40 years old. We figure that out in the inspection. We may, ask them to take money off the purchase price or to contribute towards your closing costs or repair something. So I'll guide you through that process. And again, this is a seller's market. We can't ask them to, knock $50,000 off. But if there's something that, really should be addressed, I'll help you at that point and we'll negotiate that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. And then the mortgage, at this point, you're already pre-approved. At this point, they're double checking your credit. They're underwriting your loan, which means they're looking at updated pay stubs, anything that they need to do to verify you'll be able to buy the house. They're doing an appraisal. Do you know what an appraisal is?
No, actually, I guess I would have thought that was the inspection.
Yeah, most people do. So I'm glad we're talking about this. So the appraisal is the lender going out to make sure the house is worth what you're paying for it.
So what happens if it's not?
Good question. So oftentimes it is, especially what I've seen in this market with all the transactions I've done. I only have one issue in the last 24 months. If it doesn't happen, then there's a couple things that can happen at this point. One is the first thing that I'll do, like let's say we're buying the house for $200,000. It appraises at 190. The first thing I'll do is I'll reach out to the listing agent and say, hey, it appraised at 190. We're going to move forward at 190. So I ask them that first to see if they'll drop the purchase price down to the appraised price. They may say yes. That way, that's great. Then we'll move forward with the 190 purchase price. They may say no. They may say, hey, we'll split the difference at 195, or hey, we're not going to budge. If they do that, we've got some options. One is you can make up the difference in cash. So you mentioned you've got all that money saved up. If you put less of a down payment, you can just make up the difference in cash if you decide to, if you want to. Another thing is those lenders that I use, some of them can actually get another appraisal for you. So I've had this happen where the top lender there, he's actually what's called a broker, which means he actually just started the process with a different lender. At that point, it actually appraised higher than the purchase price and the deal moved forward. So we've got a lot of options for you to make it work.
Excellent. Okay.
Good question. So they're doing that. They're doing the appraisal. They're doing the survey. That's making sure that the neighbor didn't build on a garage onto your property line, and then insurance as well. So homeowners insurance, that's included in your mortgage payment. And then the last thing that's being done right now is the title company. They are going through one to make sure that the owner owns the property and they can sell it to you, and there's no issues with title. So kind of what that means is just making sure that they own it and there's not going to be any issues with someone coming around in a couple of years saying, hey, I own it.
Okay. Like, how could that even happen?
Good question. So it does happen sometimes. So like, let's say, the seller goes and they get married in Vegas one weekend. In Ohio,
seems fine.
well, it seems fine, but they may have a wife or someone else that they actually have an ownership interest in the property.
Oh.
And if they don't disclose that to you, it could be an issue. They may come around later and say, I was married to a seller. I own this property, get out. That kind of stuff happens. So the title company, they do a search to make sure that the owner owns it. There's not going to be any issues like that that are going to hurt you. And they issue what's called a title insurance policy, which means if they miss it, if something goes wrong and it does happen, they'll make you whole. So they'll basically, if you're buying a house for $200,000, you'll be able to buy a house for that amount, and they cover that.
Wow.
Yep. Good
Does
question.
that ever happen?
I've not personally, but working in title, I have heard of that kind of stuff. Wow. Yes. So these are all being done, and I'm managing all this for you the entire time. Once we go through, get the clear to close on all these, we close. You get the financing clear to close. You'll meet with the notary signing agent that'll come and meet you. You'll sign the paperwork. And then once the transfer happens, I'll call you. Congratulations, you're a homeowner. I'll meet you later that day, give you the keys, and that's it.
Wow.
So that's it in a nutshell.
Pretty big nutshell.
And then I asked now, do you have any questions?
No.
Anything you want to go over in more detail?
I mean, it seems like, I don't know, weird. It seems like a lot and a little at the same time.
Yeah.
It was really, I gotta get pre-approved,
Yep.
gotta find a house,
Mhm.
and then you take it from there.
I'll take it the entire time. So I'm with you the entire way. You can text me with questions, you can call me to make sure all this is going smoothly. All right, so the next page, we talked about some lenders. So these are 3 lenders that I've had great experience with. Once it's time for a home inspection, these are 3 different home inspectors that my buyers have used successfully. And then property insurance. Right now, who does your car insurance?
State Farm.
State Farm. So I would say call State Farm.
Okay.
And then if you want another couple quotes, these guys will be able to give you a good quote and go.
Okay.
All right. So the next page. So these are the basic numbers that we're going to look at of what you pay, when you pay it, and like kind of how much you're going to pay.
Okay.
So we talked about you're looking in a price range of 200,000, right?
Right. Yep.
All right. So Carrie, can you go to the next page? All right. So then I'll just circle, I've got different ranges. You can see 100,000 up to $1 million. So I circle it and then I go line by line. So these are the upfront costs that you're going to pay within the first week of having the deal accepted. So the first thing is the earnest money, the earnest funds. So that's typically about 1% of the purchase price. And what that is, it's not an additional fee. It's part of your down payment that you pay up front. And you pay that to the title company. And that lets the seller know that you earnestly want to move forward with the transaction. And this is important because you've got skin in the game. So the seller knows, hey, you're a qualified buyer. And if you were to back out, you potentially could lose those funds. But it's something that we do just to get the transaction moving, to let the seller know that you're going to move forward with the transaction.
So like if I send that earnest money in, that's the seller's money?
Good question. So it's not your money, it's not their money, it's held by the title company. So it's kind of in between at that point. It's rare that this happens, but if there is an issue, we need to back out. They need to agree to give those funds back to you. It's called a mutual release.
Okay.
If you back out because of an inspection issue, or one of the contingencies fall for you can't get financing, things like that, that's written into the deal. So they'll sign more often than not. 99% of the time, they sign off and get your funds back. But like, let's say, for example, you just say, hey, I'm not going to buy anymore. I prefer renting. It's easier. At that point, you could lose those earnest funds if the seller does not return those to you. Good question. So that's in the first week. The appraisal, again, that's paid to the lender, usually in the range of $400 to $600. Home inspection, depending on who you go with, it's in the range of $400 to $600. And then miscellaneous inspection, so that would be sometimes buyers, they want to do a termite inspection, or they want to do a radon inspection, or they want to do an additional inspection. They may be about $150 per inspection.
So those things that I should just plan on doing?
It's up to you. It's always good to know what you're buying. So to be safe, yeah, I would say get as many inspections as you can if you're buying.
Yeah.
Yep. So that has you in the first week about $3,000 you're paying up front. And these are closing costs that you pay at the time of closing. So a real estate broker fee. So to work with myself at Keller Williams, the transaction fee is $499, and that's charged at closing. So that's the only thing that you pay to work with me as your agent. Does that make sense?
Well, no, I don't know if it does make sense.
Yeah.
I'd only have to pay you $500.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That's why I'm gonna go over this. So the next page here is kind of goes over how real estate agents get paid. And the reason that I do this is because I like to be as transparent as possible. When I was a lender, sometimes that if people come in and they'd be upset, like, how do I pay my realtor? How much do I owe them? I have to explain it to them as a lender, like what the realtor should have explained. So I always go upfront, hey, you pay this to me, but my commission is paid for by the seller, and here's how it works. So on the next page, you pull that up here, if you don't mind. So I fill this out. I probably should have put it in there, but, so what I do is I fill it at the top up. So we're buying a house for $200,000. So they'll typically hire a listing agent, and they may charge 6% of the purchase price to sell their home. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So we're looking at $12,000. It's going to be split 4 ways. So it's going to be split between myself, my brokerage, Keller Williams, the listing agent, and their brokerage. So of the $12,000, $7,000 is going to go to the listing agent and their brokerage. $5,000 comes to Keller Williams, and then I split that with my brokerage. So how that works is KW may get $1,800, and I may get $3,200. So that's how I get paid. I get paid by the seller. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's out of the purchase price. I pay for the house. People who sell the house pay everybody else.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So what's that $500 for then?
Good question. So that is what my office charges for basically to process the transaction, for insurance, for paperwork. And that's just, what it is what it is. So something here, I know the transaction fee is $199. I do $500. I have a transaction coordinator that she's $300 a pop. So it's paid for by the buyer. I rarely get any pushback at all on this. If I do, I can negotiate with them, whatever. I'll do it for $199, but people think you're doing all this for $500. Like, that's amazing. So they never really push back at all on that.
And there's that's just an opportunity for any agent that's with our market center. $199 is the transaction fee that the brokerage charges to the client, either buyer or seller. But should you choose to charge more to provide some additional ancillary benefits, like Pat has a transaction coordinator, which allows another layer of access, attention, focus on the minute details of a transaction. That's great. You can pass that cost on to your client by increasing your transaction fee. I do not recommend that you provide no additional value and then charge a $700 transaction fee just to make another $500 on it, right? But it is an opportunity for you as you grow your business and change what you offer to your clients, that you can cover some of that out-of-pocket cost with an increased transaction.
And my clients love having Katie. So basically what she does is she sends out weekly emails to all people in the transaction, buyers, listing agents, title lenders. So it makes it easier for everyone. And it really is worth it. And it makes things easier for me and for buyers. So it's definitely, I can share her information if you guys are interested. She's really good. Great. All right. So back to this. So that's what you pay to work with me. And then the title and escrow. So for this purchase price, they may charge about $2,000 to process our transaction. The lender may have an origination fee of about $1,300. And that depends on what program you go with, if you go points, if you go conventional financing, FHA. So they'll get more in depth with that, but this is just a ballpark. Homeowners insurance for this type of purchase price, it may be about $800 a year for that, which you pay up front for the next 12 months. And then escrow taxes, this is going to be kind of dependent on when the taxes are due, how much the taxes are. So this, again, we'll get much more specific with this once we're under contract. And at the bottom here, it says for informational purposes only. So this is like a high level overview. And once we get more specific, we'll talk to the lender and get more specific, very accurate. Okay. All right. So yes.
Escrow taxes. Are we talking about property taxes?
Yes. Yep. And I could, sometimes they like want to know about prorations and getting credits from the seller. I don't go over that unless they ask, then I can just go over how all that works. Good question. All right, so here, what we're doing is we are adding up the upfront cost, which from the top line was 3,000. And the closing costs that you pay at closing, about 5,500. So we're adding those up, and that's the $2,000 earnest money credit, so you're getting those funds back. And then I think we talked about you putting maybe 5% down. That's about $10,000. And we add all these up, you're going to be all in about $16,500 at closing. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So the first half is pay as you go, and the second half is do it close.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So
sometimes I
you have a line here that says seller paid closing costs. Is there something that I should expect them to pay?
Good question. So in a different market, I often would have the seller pay part of your closing costs. Sometimes we do need to structure it that way, depending on how the deal's going. Typically in the seller's market, it's not a thing that is expected or happens too often. So that would be like let's say we end up getting the house for $202,000. We may write the offer a little bit higher, and then they give you a credit for $2,000, so you have less cash to close. Does that make sense?
But I shouldn't expect that to be a thing.
It's not a typical thing in this environment. It's just not something we can really expect, but possibly we could, but it's very rare.
Okay.
All right, so those are the numbers. And then the next page here. Yeah. So I always go over with them. Hey, we may get in a multiple offer situation, we may need to increase our offer. Like, what does that actually mean to a buyer? So what I do at this point is say, how does purchase price affect your mortgage? So what I do is I pull up like bankrate.com or a website like that, actually get what the actual interest rate is that day. I do it in front of them so they can see, hey, the interest rate is 3.73 on a 30-year fix. Usually at this point, I'll go over, hey, the rates have been trending upwards. Here's where the rates were a month and a half ago. Here's what they were 2 weeks ago. The Fed's going to make an announcement to probably increase the rates coming in March. So these do change. It's historically a great time to buy. Rates are very low, but they're trending up right now. So I figure out what the rate is. It's 3.73. And then I have a mortgage calculator that I use that I just figure out exactly what the payment is. You could just pull up like a mortgage calculator on the computer and just tell them exactly what it is. So how it works is you put the interest rate in, $5,000, that's $23.10. And if you go up $10,000, that's $46.20. So you're really specific with this. And they say, if we find a house that's perfect for you, Mike, that checks everything you're looking for, would it be worth it to spend an extra $23 a month to get it for that situation?
Yeah.
Yeah. They say yeah. And I say, well, I'm here to look out for you. I'm not going to have you overpay. I'm here to have you get this for the right price. But if we're in a situation that it's a perfect home and it's going to take an extra $5,000 for you to get it, it's going to be about $23 a month.
So and the reaction is typically from everybody is like, oh, that's less than I
So
thought.
it's way less. People they can't believe it. So I used to ask them, what do you think it's going to be a month? They're like, $100. I'm like, oh, let's figure it out. And I do the math. I can't believe how cheap it is. So this is just something that kind of like plants the seed. If we do go over like $5,000, well, again, I'm not going to have you overspend. If that's what it takes, it's $23 a month. That's worth it. So I go over this. If they're talking about a 15-year, I go over that with them, pull up the rates. Most people don't do 15 years, as you guys know. All right, so the next thing I go over, and that's kind of like the meat of it, like the biggest things I go over. At this point, I just go over the consumer guide, consumer relationship. Like, so I'm working with you as your buyer's agent. What that means is I'm your fiduciary. And what that means is I'm working in your best interest to do everything I possibly can to help you get a great home, get it for a great price, and negotiate best rates. So that's kind of how I go over this part of it. And then working with Keller Williams Greater Metropolitan, that's my brokerage, but we can obviously look at houses that are listed with different brokerages. It doesn't have to be just Keller Williams houses that we're looking at.
So you bring that up, and I imagine it's because people have asked that question before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, people ask that sometimes. Yeah, working with other brokerages, I work with all brokerages. Fair housing, it's illegal for us to discriminate anyone for any reason. And then, do you have any questions about this? Perfect.
So consumer guide to agency needs to be given at all of your first substantive contact with a potential client. Doing a buyer consultation like this allows you to just check that box, make sure that it's done, make sure that 3 months later when you close a deal, or 12 months later when they buy a house, that Carrie's not holding your check because you don't have your paperwork done. But easy to get it done right now, and fits nicely with the
And
process.
it's important too, because it kind of gets them in the mode, oh, I'm signing something simple, because ultimately I want to get them to sign an agreement with me. So if they're signing this, like, okay, I'll sign this. They never say no. So yeah, if you could sign it, that'd be great.
Okay. Today's 26th,
27.
27th, all day long.
Something I do at this point is I have an app called Genius Scan. I just take a picture of it and scan it. That way I'm done. I give it back to them. They know exactly what they sign. Email it to myself, and I'm good to go.
That's actually, that's
Yeah.
pretty brilliant.
Yeah, it makes it much easier. And then this is the next page. So this goes over kind of the expectations that we're going to have moving forward. So it goes over the 10 things that I'm going to do for you, and then the 6 things that I do for you. So the part 1, your goals are now mine. So I'm working at your agent, I'm fiduciary.
Good. You need to lose 10 pounds.
I'm working on it. We talked about that. So your goals are my goals, so I'm working with you to achieve exactly what you want. I'm going to provide excellence in service, communication, education. I know there's a lot of realtors out there. I'm here to be the best realtor I possibly can for you, to always be available, give you the best advice, best education, to always make sure that you're represented very well. I will assist in securing the best financing option for you, provide email updates of any properties that may be a good fit for you. I'll arrange any showings you want to take a look at. This includes if we decide, hey, we're going to build. I represent you for that. If you decide that there's a for sale by owner, someone selling their own property, you want me to help you with that, I help you with that. With anything you decide to do, I'm going to help you with.
Let's
Okay.
pause for a second there, guys. That's huge. And I know some people in the room have been burned on a couple of these, but really important to include your buyer's presentation that you can help your clients with new construction, right? It will be a longer timeline, but a much easier deal occasionally, or more often than not, with new construction that you still get paid out on. If you don't clarify that for them, there's an opportunity that they think that they can't work with you, right? And so then, oh, I'm going to do new construction. They go talk to the builder themselves. Procuring cause then belongs to the builder, and you can't get paid. Or they might think, oh, I'm not going to bother them with a for sale by owner. I'll just go myself, and boom, they're under contract, and you're not a part of the equation. So making sure that they understand that will always put you in the passenger seat or driver's seat for whatever transaction they're interested in.
Yep, exactly. So I'll use my knowledge to give you a strategy to have the offer accepted. So again, once we get to the point to write an offer, I'll give you my recommendation. Here's what we should do in the terms that we can go with that make the most sense and help you to have the offer accepted. I'll recommend experienced and competent affiliates. So lenders, home inspection, contractors. I'll be there throughout the entire process, even after closing. Once you buy the house, if you need, hey, I need a roofer, call me. I'm always available to help you with anything. I'll be available to answer any questions throughout the entire process. After closing, I'll keep you up to date on the market. So I'll send you out a monthly email with houses that have sold in your neighborhood, what they sold for, so you always know what's going on. And I promise to give you my all, to really work, my best to be the best agent. And these are the things in return I need from you. One is to get a pre-approval prior to looking at properties. And for me, this is non-negotiable. Like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna show them properties until they're pre-approved. If they're not gonna do that, like, you're busy, I'm busy, like, they need to take that step. If they push back on that, then they may not be someone that is gonna buy a house for one, and I'm not gonna spend too much time with them. So I make it very clear they need to do that. Part two, notify me of any properties you want to take a look at. Inform all other agents that I am your exclusive agent. Formulate any offers through me. Work exclusively with me as your agent for 12 months and have fun. So this should be a good process. You're buying a house, you've been renting for a long time now. This is going to be a great experience. It may seem like a lot now, but at the end of this, you'll be moving in, you'll be happy, you'll be having parties in your backyard. So anytime you don't feel like we're connecting or you're upset, call me, we'll figure it out, So that's what I need from you. Any questions about that?
No, I'm gonna pause the script here. Have you ever considered, do you bring up hey, I'm a referral business, you hear agents talk about when and how to ask for the referral? Is it, hey, if you know anybody else or if I'm doing a good job, refer me?
I do bring that up, but not right now.
Right.
I feel like I have to provide more value at this point. But for me, my business is 80% referral. So I probably already know them at this point.
Yeah.
Or a friend of a friend. Once I think they trust me, then I'll bring that up to them.
So following up, and I know we've only got a couple more pages here, but you have a lot of referral business. It might be a friend or a friend of a friend. You do this with everybody, right?
I do.
Would you say it's even more important with the people that know you the best?
Yes. Yeah. Don't assume hey, I know this person, they know the process, or they bought 10 houses. It may be more important because they maybe don't know, or they have a different expectation. They bought a house in 2008 when it was completely different. So anyone. So I would say 99% of people.
Yeah.
Some people, it's just I know they know what they're doing. They're an investor. They bought a bunch of houses. We align well. I don't do it. But anyone else, I always recommend it.
Awesome. Yeah. So that sounds good to me.
Yep. So the next page here. So this is the buyer representation agreement. So this is just stating you and I are going to work together. And again, I mentioned this is for 12 months, and I'm going to be your exclusive agent. So what that means is I'm going to be your agent, helping you to show houses, write offers, to be there for you. If at any point, let's say we're a couple months in and you say, hey, Pat, it's not working out, let me know. We don't have to work together, but this just ties me to you. I'm going to take a lot of time to show you houses, to write offers. So I just need to know that you're all in with me and I'm all in with you. That way I can give you my all and make sure that I can give you the best possible service. Do you have any questions about that?
So there's some blanks here about retainer fees and minimum percentages of purchase.
Yeah.
If we fill those in, or
So time out.
Yeah.
So really what I do is I have my own really simple one that I do that just says we're going to work together, fair housing. So I don't really use this one too often. I'm using it now because, presenting to KW. I don't like the retainer fee thing. I don't like going over that with people. So I just have a really simple thing. Really, it's on the back of this that just says we're going to work together. It's not here because I didn't want to confuse anyone, but they just sign and I sign. But we do use the KW one, and you got to get into all that.
So you can skip it or just strike through it, right?
Yeah.
But the important thing is, and I think this is such a good point. You've got them in the mode where they understand the process. They're thinking about the next steps. They're picturing themselves in the home. They're signing the consumer guide because that's the obligation of the interaction is that gets filled out. So they're signing things. and then they're signing this commitment, right? And I know some people are very uncomfortable having somebody sign a buyer commitment agreement. I think that if you are doing a full buyer presentation, intake consultation, it seems like it really makes sense. But if you're just meeting somebody and showing them homes, right? Or you have a on the phone consultation and then you send this over to sign, it might feel different to the client. How many times has somebody said, I have not signed this?
Maybe 5% sometimes. So I would say probably 6 out of 10 times they just sign right there. That's great. Other people say there's no pressure. You don't have to sign right now. I'll still show them a house if I'm out with them. And then I said, just before we meet again, I need you to sign this. And they almost always do.
So you do not charge a retainer fee?
I don't. Do you?
I don't, but I know a realtor say
Yeah.
he does, and it works well for him.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought about doing that because I've got so many buyers, but I just haven't done that yet.
But I have done deals where the buyer did go with another realtor,
Yeah.
and I never got this signed. So, and I didn't get it.
Yeah,
I didn't get the question, so what,
I don't expect this to be like a binding agreement. Like it's just perception's reality. If they signed it, I signed it. If they go, I'm not going to sue them or anything, but it's an agreement. And I kind of like to lay out like how I get paid, because then they know, hey, Pat's going to do all this work for me. He's not going to get paid till the end.
Yeah.
He's knowledgeable. He's answered all my questions. No other agent that they've talked to has gone over this with them. So they almost always do it. And really, if they don't want to sign it, then it's probably not the right fit for me anyway.
so they don't sign it, you don't work with them? Or?
Well, if they like say they're gonna think about it, like, okay, then if they want, they call me, if they want, well, did you sign it yet? They say no, well, if I'm like available, I may do it, but I say you need to sign that first before, we work together. And they usually do it. But just like you guys running around, like I don't want to work with someone that may go to Zillow and just find someone else. I've spent all this time with them. So I really don't get much pushback on it. And if I explain it that way, that it ties me to you, we're tied together, it'll be a much better process. I'm able to give you all my attention, and I tell them truthfully, all my clients sign this.
And then if there's a situation where there's a client you don't want to work with anymore, you just kind of send them an email and let them know that we're just no longer a good fit, pretty much. And that ends this, right?
I haven't had that happen yet, but I don't know how. I would probably call them. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you have to put it in writing or something.
Yeah,
You talk-
yeah, something right. Yep.
Yeah. There's,
It's very, it's beneficial on a couple of fronts, right? There's a professionalism element to it. I think there's also, anybody and everybody knows that there's 15,000 realtors in Northeast Ohio, and everybody probably knows somebody that can show them a house, right? And when you are, even if somebody's not interviewing with other realtors for their, represent them as a buyer, right? You standing out when everybody's talking at the water cooler about like, oh yeah, my guy walked me through everything, and she, explained the way closing costs work. Obviously there's a point of diminishing returns for this conversation, but it's really important that they, you are inviting people to self-select out, right? So that you're not investing time, energy, and resources in somebody that ultimately is just, binge watched a bunch of HGTV while they had COVID. Now they want to go look at houses, right? You don't want to spend your time with those folks. You want to spend your time with people that have an appropriate motivation to buy. Yeah, Jade.
What my clients didn't sign, so when I put an offer, I put in.
Yeah.
And then I explain to them.
Yeah.
So they think, I'm writing offer, so they sign.
Yeah.
One time.
I did do that before. When I'm writing an offer, I have them sign it.
Yeah.
I've done it before.
Yeah. And I think that, again, context is important, right? When you're providing, when it's a part of this larger conversation, it makes sense. If it's the only thing you're asking them to do before you work with them, it doesn't make sense, right? And I think having like the way you framed it, if things aren't working out, it's not gonna keep you from buying a house. I'll make sure that you're released, you get another realtor, whatever. But also, something like this can be useful if, you know, they go to an open, you're out of town, right? God forbid a realtor take a vacation, but let's assume that you did. And they go to an open house, right? This will help from a procuring cause standpoint. It's very easy if they decide that they do something, or, you know, the person holding the open house is like, I'll write up an offer for you, it's fine. And then, you know, you can say, hey, I'm in a contractual relationship with them to represent them in all transactions. Really, it really quiets any conversation as to whether or not it's your client right away. And it also, there is a cycle, like, take all the legality out of it. It's a psychological commitment for them at that point that they're going to work with you, right? And so that's where you'll find that people will be like, hey, I'm about to go, you know, see this new construction, right? And then you just have to tell them, make sure you give them my name, and then you follow up with that paperwork.
Exactly. Yep, so I go over all that, and then I kind of turn the tables, and we're running short on time, but I think this is under the client information sheet. Go over what you're looking for, tell me why. I kind of try and dig deep, like, why is that important? What about having a backyard? Oh, I want to have my friends over every year and, you know, drink bourbon, whatever it may be, to like actually get
More than
them
once a
talking.
year, probably.
Yeah, get them talking about what's important and remember it too. Like, hey, they really like a condo because it's simple and they, whatever it may be, just
Yeah.
really pay attention and like get them talking as much as possible. Is what I do, fill this out. And then at the end of it, there is like like a homework. And I say, this is something that's actually gonna be really good for you to do. So one, narrow down what you're looking for. And then for me to learn. So it's really good for you to ask questions you may not have thought of about, hey, I really want to have this neighborhood or this school district. So it's gonna kind of jar you a little bit and ask you questions that you may not have thought about. And it's great for you and also for me, so we can start narrowing the search. If you could just bring that next time we meet, that'd be great.
And this is really just like the LP mama
It's a
script.
simple one.
Yeah.
So I just put my like logo on it. But that's it. And then usually like they'll ask more questions about the neighborhood. And I pull the MLS up and show, hey, this is what's sold. Often, you know, especially first-time buyers, they're like, I'm pre-approved for 200,000. What does that actually mean? So I'll figure out like what their payment is. If you buy this house for $200,000, the taxes are this, the principal and interest is this. Whatever, I add everything up and say this is going to be your range, and they're like, oh, I had no idea like what it was. So that's a huge value you can add, is actually knowing like, hey, this is what the payment is, and I would say, hey, you run out, how much do you pay?
I pay $1,100 a month.
Okay, perfect. So if we buy a house in this range, you'll be around $1,400 a month. Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Perfect. And you'll get an idea too. Sometimes they qualify for way more, and then they qualify for $1 million loan, but they're renting for $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
And say, well, you're going to get pre-qualified for a lot more. Obviously, like, I'm here to make things comfortable for you. So if you want your payment to be around $2,100, we'll probably be looking at this price for you. I'm not going to max out what you're pre-approved for. We're going to keep it where you want it to be. And then ask more questions about them. Usually it takes about an hour. Sometimes it takes a lot longer. They have a lot of questions. But really just kind of be interested in them, ask them a lot, be curious, and kind of just know your stuff and be able to like pull up, hey, this is pertinent information, the MLS, these are listings that you may like. Hey, this one was on the market, it sold in 2 days. Just have a conversation.
With this homework piece, I like this a lot because it's a framework, and it also, I imagine with a married couple, this is probably pretty impactful in getting them to have these conversations prior to standing in the unfinished basement as to whether or not they want a house with a finished basement.
Yep. So it's great for, and I always tell when I'm working with a couple, like, hey, this is actually going to help you guys figure this out and actually talk about what you want. That way I can help you. But until you guys talk it over, I'm not going to be able to find it. So it's definitely very beneficial. And I also get a good gauge. If they won't fill this out for me, they may not be the most interested buyers. They may, be ready in 6 months, as opposed to someone that fills this out and then emails it to me the next day. They get pre-approved the next day. Like, they're ready to go. And I know that. I know that they are. So another thing for me to gauge where they're at. And then really I learned a lot from this. And so do the buyers.
So I've heard a realtor like a presentation for buyers. She says she'll like show 5 houses.
Okay.
Like, in a period, show 5 houses. And if they're not making an offer after 5 houses, then she'll revisit this consultation.
Yep.
Find out what exactly are you really looking for.
I
You do
don't
that?
like do like a full consultation, but I'll probably just do it over the phone. Hey, we've looked at 5 or 6 properties, haven't liked anything yet. Let's kind of dig a little deeper, like what's going on? Is it too expensive, not enough room, whatever it may be, and then I'll adjust. Hey, based on what you said, we've seen these properties, you didn't like this part of University Heights, maybe we should look somewhere else. So for me, it's not like a 5 and out. It's like if we're around there, then I'll revisit.
Yeah, Ken?
At what point do you talk about like types of strategies that you might have to use to get an accepted offer in this market?
So
Would that
sometimes I
be
do it
this-
right now. Sometimes it's like when we're writing an offer. I don't want to go too deep and kind of scare them with escalations and waiving inspections. Sometimes I do, if it naturally comes up. It really just depends. But yeah, I kind of do bring up escalations, but I use those a lot. Usually like on the first page we looked at. But sometimes you can tell that this is too, I'm talking way too much. Like I can't do that. And I always tell them like, hey, sometimes I talk too much or too little. So just let me know, like I can slow down, I can speed up. Sometimes I get excited when I'm talking about this. So just, I don't know, make it fun if you can. I'm a little nervous now, so I'm more animated when I'm talking.
You're so pleasant, actually. I was sitting here thinking
Oh.
you're very, very pleasant to,
Thank you.
and like calming and like going through it. You know, I thought you were really pleasant.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Wanted to ask, around that idea of like, hey, how many homes should I show, or when have I shown too many? Have you seen that like somebody who's not ready, like maybe they weren't ready in 2020, but they're coming back into the funnel because like they tried or their credit wasn't, they couldn't get pre-approved, whatever it was. Like, that you still keep in your funnel because they're gonna buy eventually. You just want it to be with you.
Yeah, so I keep all those people like in my funnel. I've got Excel, like all the people I've talked to, anyone that could be buying in 6 months, 2 years, 5 years. And if it's, hey, I talked to them in 2020 and now I'll probably do like a mini consultation with them. Hey, this is what the market's doing now. Interest rates are going up. These houses have sold in this neighborhood that you like for 50 over asking or or whatever it may be. So just kind of like an abbreviated one.
Yeah.
Because you guys know the market changes every day, and it's just good to let them know what's going on, and they're gonna have questions. And the more you talk, they'll like, oh, okay, I never knew that, but I feel comfortable to ask this question now because I kind of make myself like, I always tell them I like educating. That's the most important thing for me. So any question you have, even if it's as simple as like, what's a down payment? I want to make sure you understand. So they do ask like really simple questions, and I actually like, I'm really nice about it. Like, thanks for bringing that up. I'm really like, sorry, I overlooked that before. This is what earnest funds are, or I can explain it another way. And I always say at the end, hey, sometimes I go over all this, then I get a call the next day, like, hey, what were you talking about? I had no idea, like, can we talk again? Or what exactly is the inspection again? And that happens maybe 10% of the time. Like, I wasn't sure what you're talking about, Pat. And thanks for bringing that up. Like, I should have explained it better. Here's actually how this works. Oh, perfect. So if they're able to call you with that, then you've got a good rapport going. And that's kind of what you want.
Do you ever do the presentation on Zoom, or is it always in person?
I did it on Zoom probably five or six times. It's much better in person, I think. But I will do it if they won't meet in person. But usually it's done before I show a house. So like when the pandemic was crazy, then I would do it over Zoom. And that works. It works fine. But just to like be with someone, give your attention, your time, and all that. I'm a real person. I'm not just like the Zoom screen. Like I think it's much better to do it in person if you can. What other questions do you guys have? Go ahead.
Yes, in your chart, page 2, where you show the upfront costs, you break out the appraisal cost. Is that the appraisal that the mortgage lender does on the property?
Yep, so I worked with different lenders before, so they typically charge a fee at application to send the appraiser out. So it could be $400, sometimes if it's like a VA, it could be $600. If it's jumbo, it may be more. And I tell them at the bottom, it says like, hey, these are general numbers. Prices have been going up for appraisals. So it gives you like a ballpark idea. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Is that broken out? Does every lender break that out as an out-of-pocket cost up front that the person applying for the mortgage pays?
Most lenders that I know, yeah. Yeah.
What did you say, Jeff? It's on the HUD? It's on the HUD.
Have you seen it differently?
I've always discussed that there's going to be an appraisal. But
Yeah.
No, I have never discussed with the client that that's an upfront out-of-pocket cost.
Yeah, I mean, I always do. Any lender I've worked at, they charge them up front like $500. Good faith funds is what they call it at Rocket Mortgage and Chase. If they don't, that's great. But being conservative, like, hey, I'm gonna disclose $500 or so. If you don't get charged that, fantastic. But if you do, at least they know about it, so they're not surprised.
What other questions, guys? What up? Any ahas? Like anything you're like, wow, that's something I got a consultation tomorrow. I'm gonna apply that. What did we learn? Yeah.
I was gonna say, I have never used something like this, but you know what? I really like the format.
Yep.
It's especially with a first-time buyer, if they're going down a path they haven't been before, and this is to help them set realistic expectations.
Yep.
And that should pave the way for a better relationship throughout the process.
And buyers love it because they have no idea. And just to have an idea like this, like no other realtor can do that for them. So I think it's very, very beneficial. Just if I were to go over one page, it may just be that one. Because that one, I think they have no idea what it's going to cost and when and why. So if you were to have 20 minutes and just have one page, you can just go over that.
Yeah, I think, and this is you built a very robust, like no stone left unturned, right? For some of you, I know you're newer in the business or maybe, don't have the, maybe level of mastery of some of the subject matter. Doing a buyer consultation, even if it is, here's who I am, here's what I do, here's, you're gonna find a house, write an offer, and then close on it. Like any level of process and expectation is going to be better than, all right, let's go see some houses. And then hoping they write an offer, right?
And if anybody wants to like go with me, I'm happy. Like if you text me and say, hey Pat, can you take me on one? If you're new or whatever, if you just want to like, see how I do it, like, I'm happy to if you want to check it out.
That's awesome.
So seriously, just let me know.
All right, one more aha, one lesson learned.
So do we expect for 2022 to stay a seller's market the entire time? or-
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Because I am newer, so
Yeah.
like the things that I've been looking up is kind of like, if you're working with a buyer, you just need to be super transparent about everything up front
Mhm.
and like not expect to lowball the offer because it probably won't be accepted at all. And it was another thing that was saying that if you have a buyer that's trying to have an FHA loan, you should try to convince them to do the conventional route. I don't know if that's still valid or not, or.
Yeah, I mean, you can't make someone get approved for conventional. But
Yeah,
if for whatever reason they may think, hey, I put less down if I go FHA, just FHA is fine.
Mhm.
It's not nearly as bad as some agents think it is. It's kind of the perception that people have that makes it worse.
okay.
Go ahead.
It is a perception, I'll give you that. I was in a competitive bid situation on a duplex property in Shaker in October. And my client got the offer using, usually we used an escalation clause, but the sellers had come in the best and highest, and my buyer was doing FHA. And the way that we handled that, the agent for the seller called and said, the length of time you put there between closing is that real? I said, I asked that same question and my buyer did to their lender. And that's what they gave us. If you would like to talk with the lender, and we gave the lender's name to the agent for the seller, and they talked to them before that. The deal got accepted, and everything went according to schedule. So I think what you're getting at is in this, while we're in a competitive market, what constitutes a good offer, and sometimes we're predisposed that because FHA is usually a smaller down payment, a seller with multiple offers may push the FHA aside in favor of a conventional, an offer with conventional lending. But it doesn't have to be that way. There's several factors that constitute what is a good offer, and work with the seller's agents to get good information on the table.
That's the number one thing. And it's, and keep in mind, you're new, right? As self-proclaimed new. And the listing agent might be new, right? I mean, there's a reason that, listings are great in a market like this, but that's also, there's a different expectation. There are different challenges when it comes to listing a property. And so there's an opportunity on that for that listing agent to get into a relationship with them and make sure that they understand that this offer is FHA and what it does and doesn't, right? Because again, perception is not always reality, or perception is always truth, but it can be reality, right? And so what we should do is take advantage of that opportunity. But I would not discriminate against clients or steer them in any direction. If FHA is the strategy that they intend to use, then we will make it work for an opportunity. And I think that last spring it was very much like, oh, I feel like I can't just get one of these. But even throughout the summer, June, July, August, and all through the fall, everybody was knocking down FHA loans. I mean, it wasn't as problematic as maybe it was made to seem, But we also tell stories about our successes and failures differently, right? And it couldn't get an offer accepted, couldn't get a buyer house, must have been the FHA, right?
Communication.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, guys.
Is there anything that you guys do that you think I should add just so I can learn from you guys? Do you guys all do this now? Do you not do this? Do you think it's worth the time? What's your feedback on it?
It's worth the time. You're just trying to understand what your client and what their expectations are.
Yeah.
Well, personally, my team has experienced a lot of, like, if you don't get the buyer representation form, a lot of times the clients just don't really think, oh, I'm just working with them. So it's a lot easier for them to go with someone else because they don't feel as loyal to you. And we've been burned in the past with people we thought, we had in the bag, and then, they just didn't feel like they were loyal to us. So it just helps them feel like that.
Definitely. Yeah, because again, how would they know, right? How would they know that you're not like the brokerage isn't paying you a salary or that, whatever?
Yeah, that comes up, and actually no, like I don't pay for leads. Like this is what I make. I pay taxes, and gas, and all the expenses with it, and that's why some people think, hey, it's silly for you to go over how much you get paid, but I think it's good because then they know, hey, that's going to get paid this. He's doing a great job, and he only gets paid when he closes. So I don't know. I think it's important to talk about that, but some people may not. Great. Awesome. But yeah, thank you guys for coming. Seriously, if anyone wants to come, go with me. I'd love to have you there. But yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And then we have all the stuff. Your comments. Nice. Me too. Yeah.
What?
I think that there's.
How's John doing?
Everybody's gonna take it in a different range, right? You would say oh, well, Yeah,
Nice to meet
you gotta be prepared to talk. Even if that was the only thing you walked in with.
Yeah.
You know, hey, here's end to end, here's how it all looks, here's how it all works.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Well, I'm not getting into this.
Oh, okay. Oh,
See you, man. I thought that was one of the right time.
oh, okay, yeah.
You had
Appreciate it.
a
Yeah.
orientation with Sierra last week. She mentioned you were interested
No, no, I have.
in- Yeah, I know. Yeah. Nice to meet you. I thought it was great, man. Feel better. Yeah, definitely. I know you mentioned a list of like.
Yeah, how are you?
What,
Yeah, I'm like, it's, I just turned up on pictures on my car. That'll be fun now. Yeah. That's fun to take shots with. Yeah. I'm not gonna, no, my one friend that goes all the time, she has like goggles and a helmet at least. I was like, I don't know if I want to ski. I was out to snowboard, you know, but like I need like pants, you know, and I'm a freak baby as is, so like layer. So like usually I'm used to going to free lessons. This is like packing a board that like I didn't hear. Yeah, I know. Like, self-made, what about you? Like, do you have any fun trips planned? No, I know. That's what I like. Go somewhere yeah, I went to Denver. Okay, great. I thought 3 hours. Oh, no. But Denver itself was really nicer than here. Like I missed it. Denver.
Yeah, that's, I mean, it's just like, you hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of it is because like I was trying to call, so it's like. Well, that's why I asked the question.
I don't know.
Do you do this with people you know or not? Yeah, I definitely. That's great. That's great.
I was trying to do like once a month, just like a little bit. Yeah, like go visit. Yeah. You put your name.